We are starting to read Chapter 4 from Off the Map. So read along if you want. If you don't have the book, just listen. Sorry guys, for the close, I can't find a chapter apparently. Okay guys, ready? The next morning, I wake up with my face pressed up against the cold, wet side of my tent. Condensation and icy dawn temperatures make an unpleasant way to start the day. Cheerio had started off sleeping at my feet when we went to bed, but sometimes during the night she decided to wedge herself between me and Mom. Now she is lying in the primest and prime spots where she could snuggle against two sources of warmth. I wormed my way back around in the sleeping bag to her face and get her mouth full of fur. I went to tell her to move, but when I listened to her long, happy snores and occasional I'm dreaming about chasing squirrel yip, I decide that I can let her slumber for a little longer. I stick my hand out of the scratched Cheerio on her rump. I love this nutty mutt beyond words. Cheerio lifts her muzzle and she smiles. Then she gives a good stretch, inadvertently kicking my mom with all the four straight legs. Honey, what time is it? My mom opens her eyes and gently bends Cheerio's leg back into tucked position. Mom's phone is hanging up on the mesh pocket on the ceiling where all the headlamps. I press the home button sleepily, and the time flashes across the screen. 6 a.m., I tell her. Mom yawns. Wow, that's late. She's right. If you're up after 6 on a river occasionally during the height of summer when it gets light and 4 of us counts and sleeping in. Mom and I swap out of pajamas for our day clothes and wiggle out of the sleeping bags. Mom zips open the tent flag and Cheerio bounds out, eager for her morning feed and squirrel patrol. While Mom fixes us oatmeal, loaded with raisin and walnuts and sweetened with brown sugar, and chats with Terry, I feed Cheerio and pick up, and Cheerio and pack up. Breakfast isn't quite ready when I'm done, but Mom has heated up some water, and I make a mug of hot cocoa, Swiss Miss, the one with the little marshmallows, always, and take Cheerio to the river. As I sip my drink, we watch the mist float over the river and across the small mountains in the distance. The skies are clear, and there's a snap in the air that feels like a good weather is going to hold. Usually, being out in nature feels uncomplicated, other than getting to where you want to go. There's not much else to do except enjoy everything surrounding you. I inhale the cool air, tasting it on a flat in my tongue, and I glaze out the beauty around me. I want to stink around the moment, but I can't. Not while my ex-best friend is being a jerk, and there's no 3 long days to go. And there are 3 long days to go with him. I finished my cocoa and headed back to camp. At breakfast, Mom pulls out the map and goes to the route with us. I try to listen, but I keep on getting distracted by Cheerio trying to eat my oatmeal. Once we're finished cleaning up, we pack our gear and load everything up. I've kayaked Cheerio into our canoe, and I'm all ready to push off when Mom says, Marlo, hold on a minute. What's up? I ask. Mom looks over the little canoe and they follow her gaze well. I can see a few nicks and dings that that weren't there at the beginning of the trip. Mom waved at Terry and Amos, who were putting their life jackets. Hey fellas, I'm a little worried that you may end up seriously damaging your canoe if you continue paddling to each other. Why don't we switch boats today? Terry, you can ride with me in our canoe, and I'll make sure we steer clear and any surprise rocks that might come up. As my stomach flips, Mom turns to me. Also, I know you and Amos haven't been hung out for a few weeks. You should spend time together. Yes, that's a great idea, says Terry. Obviously, to the way Amos' eyebrows are lifting about his head, I open my mouth to protest, but then stop if I complain. Mom will ask why, and I don't have a good answer for her. Instead, I say, "What about myself? I need my bag." Don't worry about that, Mom answers easily. We're all going to the same place eventually, but I need... My voice trails off. There really isn't anything that I'll use before camp. At least not that I can think of a spot. Fine, Amos mimics. Is his voice straining to me in natural? He's in the same boat as I am? I think, wincing at my mental pun. Cheerio can go with you, of course, Mom adds. Dead way, Amos mutters. What? Terry asks. Nothing, Amos replies. Okay, I say, trying to sound resigned. Come on, Cheerio. Cheerio and I clamber out of the canoe and head over to Amos. Yay, I say. That's the spirit, Amos replied. Eventually, deadpan, we launch our boats into the starting paddle. I don't know why, but it was a lot easier when Mom was in the stern. Amos and I just don't seem to match strokes, and it feels like only one of us is ever paddling. To make things worse, Cheerio, who was as calm as a napping cat yesterday, seems to sense the helter-skelter to feel in our moments. Every few minutes, she stands up and makes a little circle and tries to clamber onto the gear, attempting to get comfortable. When she does it, I have to stop paddling and turn around to help settle her. The boat rocks side to side every time she moves, and more than once the water creeps up only an inch below gunwale. Amos doesn't say anything, but I can feel frustration vibrating off him. Even though Terry is still way new at kayaking, because Cheerio is being restless, it's not too long before Mom and I pull ahead of us. As they go farther and farther away, Mom looks up on my shoulder. Make sure to keep river tap right. She calls it to us before the canoe disappears around the bend. The river winds and twirls around the landscape as we paddle in silence. I don't know how I'm going to survive 2 more days of this. Early morning becomes late morning, and I swing from misery and anger and back again. I just don't understand why Amos completely ditched me in the way that he did, and why he seems angry at me. As I fume over him in my mind, I've about decided that even if he apologizes now, I have no interest in speaking to him again. Memory hits me hard. I don't know what I did, but I remember clearly when I found out that Amos and I were most definitely not best friends. It happened in the school cafeteria in the beginning of May, just 2 weeks before school ended. I had a usual brown bag lunch full of turkey and cheese sandwich, a thermos of milk, and 3 chocolate chip cookies tucked in foil. Gym class had ended 10 minutes ago, and my stomach was howling at me. Who knew pickleball could be so intense? I arrived at the usual table, plunked down my food, and dug in. Halfway through my sandwich, I realized something was wrong. Amos and I had always eaten lunch together, and he had always gotten the same lunch table ahead of me. I couldn't understand if he was a little late, but I could understand if he was a little late, but as the minutes ticked by, I was starting to get worried. I glanced at the empty chair next to me and frowned. Something must have happened to him. Maybe he got sick and had to go home early. Maybe Terry had gotten sick and he had to go home early. Maybe a sinkhole had opened underneath his homeroom and he had to go home early. But when I looked to the cafeteria, I spotted Amos' familiar jet black hair among the crowd at the opposite end of the room from where we normally sit. He was sitting between his classmates, Naomi and Omen, and there were no other seats at the table. Amos seemed like a sense of eyes on him. He tilted his head around and looked at me. His eyes darted back and forth. And then he looked down. Amos! Hey, Amos! I called, my voice loud enough to carry across the whole cafeteria. Amos didn't wait for me to come over. He didn't look at me again. Amos! I yelled. I shuffled my lunch back into my bag and stood up. Will you stop screaming? Jessica Cavarta from the cool girl table shouted. She gave me an arched eyebrow of death. You're murdering my eardrums. Normally, I'd roll my eyes and toss Jessie into a good singer, but instead I strode towards Amos in my high-top sneakers, gobbling up the space between us. Why was he sitting somewhere else, without telling me? And at the table, what I could join. Naomi leaned over and whispered something to Amos. He jerked his head up and looked at me. At the utter picnic filled his face, he leapt to his feet so fast a plastic chair was sitting on a screeching and fell over with a clatter. He grabbed his lunch bag from cookies and fell out, but he didn't stop to pick up them. Instead, he bolted back to the back door of the cafeteria and disappeared into the hallway beyond. Suddenly, I felt so exposed, standing alone in the crowded lunchroom with the kids around me, laughing, chatting, squealing. All of them were on their own little tribe of people and bound to close knit groups. Now, and that I wasn't part of because I didn't care about belonging with other kids. The little cranks and why I wouldn't need them. There only ever been Amos and me at lunch. It was always the two of us huddled around the smallest table in the cafeteria, swapping food and horrible puns and making each other feel like we didn't need anybody else. And now apparently Amos didn't need me either. I felt dizzy. Suddenly everything seemed to get louder. It was like if we were underwater, being pummeled by sounds I couldn't understand. I stumbled back to my seat and spent the rest of the lunch lonely and confused. I tried to tell myself that it was just a misunderstanding, that he had a meeting with another teacher that he had to run off to. But nothing made sense. I decided I would meet up with Amos after school and sort out what was going on. We'd been through everything together. This wouldn't be any different. When I went to his locker at the last bell, Amos was there, shoving textbooks into his bag. Hey, I said, shifting my backpack from one side to the other. What was all that about at lunch? Amos slammed his locker shut and clicked his combo lock back in place. It's nothing. My hands flew onto my hips. Did I do something wrong? If so, I'm sorry, but I don't think I did anything. That would just make you mad at me. Just forget it, he said, looking everywhere but at me. You're being weird. Talk to me, Amos. I told him it's not worth it. Amos turned and began to walk away from me with a stiff, straight shoulders. Amos, wait, I called after him. Amos didn't stop, and he didn't wait. Suddenly, it was like I'm back to my front porch, watching my dad leave all over again. For the second time in a month, I'm watching someone I love and trust deliberately walk away from me without an explanation, and there's nothing I can do. An awful pain twists through my heart and spreads like fingernails crawling up to my throat. I fight it, but I can't stop scalding tears that flood across my face. Fine then, I scream after Amos. I can walk away too. I wrenched my gaze from Amos and marched to my locker, took out my backpack, and banged the door shut. As I walked home, I thought about how Amos said she'd always been there for me. Turns out he was a liar, just like my dad. I wasn't going to get my heart broken again. No way. When I got home, I found a chunk of stone and rammed it into my knothole. And then I superglued the field and the cracks and the knocks that were good and stuff. No more gifts would be going in or out. As I stood up, I looked over at Amos' house, and he was at the window watching me. With your eyes met flame. Amos drew back and pulled the curtain over the window. I went inside and slammed the door in as hard as I could. From the moment on until this trip, we hadn't said a word to each other. Not even a measly hey. That's the end of chapter 4, guys. Stay tuned to me reading chapter 5.